All right, so Bitcoin has now put in another higher high after taking out this significant range high over here. This is a bit of a bullish move, and so I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the potential scenarios that could come from this. Am I feeling a bit more bullish short term? Am I still considering the possibility of this just being a, grab of the highs basically of liquidity? And could we still see price fall back within this range and continue trading in here? Or are we potentially going to see this larger overall trend continue? And could we actually be breaking out of this range to the upside? So I want to take a look at that. I want to take a look at market cipher, and I also want to go over some key support levels that may potentially provide a higher low if we find support in that area. And could also signify that maybe price wants to go lower if we start losing those areas. So first, I want to talk about this higher high that we put in. This is a bit of a bullish development. We have broken the range first off with a daily close. If I delete that drawing, you can see this first candle we did close above it, and now we've put in a lower time frame higher high, another one. So this is something a bit different than we saw at the lows. We did technically see a similar thing here. It was on a lower time frame. This up here is a bit more pronounced, but down here we kind of got like a quick move down and then immediately pulled back into the range. And if we kind of extend this line over, the time between when we broke out and when we broke back up was actually 3 days and 20 hours. So I don't think we're quite at 3 days yet. We might be. So we're at about 2 days since we broke above this range. And you could say this looks a little similar. We did technically put in a lower high, and then a lower low here, but it was on a lower time frame. Like I said, this one is a bit more pronounced over here. And I do still think there is reason to come to the downside, specifically in the short term, just looking at this bit of price action, because just we came up so aggressively. Oftentimes, when you have moves like this, where you see massive inefficiencies, where you see a bunch of basically higher lows leading up to the inefficiency, which could cause like a cascade of stop losses. I look at price action like this as a valid reason to come back to that price action. It's the reason why I thought we could originally come back up to this high, because we saw a very similar thing over here. So me personally, I am still feeling pretty agnostic about this. I'm considering both scenarios, and I'm just playing price action as it's presented, but I want to go over, some scenarios which could make me lean one way or another, depending on what we see at those areas. And I will do like a full market cipher analysis. I'll run through all the time frames towards the end of the video, but I do want to mention that on some of the midterm time frames, we are seeing money flow continue to put in higher highs. Like on this 4 hour, even though we are seeing some momentum divs, we're seeing money flow get a pretty aggressive move to the upside. And a lot of times when I see situations like this, where we see momentum divs but not money flow, it often signifies that the trend could ultimately continue even if we get a retracement. That's kind of how I look at these divs. A div might play out in the short term just to put in a higher low in an uptrend. And there are some conflicting signs throughout other time frames. I want to mention that now, but just in favor of the bullish scenario, we are seeing money flow on the 4 hour and the 3 hour put in higher lows or higher highs, excuse me. It's getting a pretty solid move to the upside, even though we are seeing these divergences. Now, on some time frames, it is starting to come out a little bit, but it could be coming in a bit more locally, and maybe we could see that more local trend kind of shift the overall trend. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. We have this potential, but also maybe the overall trend plays out. We will do a better deep dive into that later in the video. But yeah, basically, because of the 4 hour, because we're seeing momentum divs, but we're seeing money flow continue to put in higher lows, I am considering the scenario of a higher low being put in a bit more. And I do think we have a pretty obvious area of confluence right now to look at. So long as Bitcoin does not put in a higher high, if we get like a little liquidity grab of the high, wouldn't change things too much. But where we are at right now, we have some nice confluence with the golden pocket of this last move to the upside, basically, of this last leg in market structure. The golden pocket is coming in an area where I already had my eyes on, essentially. Number one, we have a massive inefficiency essentially leading up to this area. We have the point of control of this previous range that we just broke out of. And we also have the daily open, which is that gray dotted line right there. And if I go to the daily time frame, you can see that the daily candle opened right here, and if we hold off on coming back to this level for another 1 hour and 45 minutes, essentially, this will become an untapped daily level. And, we also got a very aggressive move away from that daily open, which makes me think it may be reactive. So we have a lot of confluence coming in this area, and I usually don't talk about order blocks much on my channel because I try to keep White Phoenix's stuff a secret as much as I can. But I know that he does allow us to talk about basic supply and demand and basic market structure, which is what I really try and keep it to. And, these classic order blocks are like the most basic you can get with supply and demand. At least just kind of identifying them on their own, not really going into how you can use them. But yeah, I mean, there's an order block here. Clearly, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this. It's not hard to identify an order block. There's plenty of YouTube videos on it. So because of this guy, I was already keeping my eye on this level. So we have a nice area of confluence. I think this zone between the point of control of this range and we can go down to the bottom of that order block. That is going to be my zone of interest. And this is an area where I will personally be looking for confirmations. I think it makes sense to potentially put in a higher low in this area, considering we would fill this inefficiency. We would be retesting this range. And you may say, what do you mean by you're looking for confirmations in that area? Well, that is how I trade. I wait for price to get to my zones, and then if I see what I want to see in that area, then often I will take a trade there. And I use a variety of confirmations, a lot which I cannot go over. But one thing I can say is if we get a move down to this area and we start to see market cipher divergences as we're putting in lows in this area, maybe we start ranging in here and we start to see money flows start turning to the upside. We maybe start seeing some bullish price action. That is one confirmation I'll be looking for. Completely disregarding all the other confirmations I'm looking for, I also like to see market cipher backing up my ideas. So I would kind of like to see, on a variety of time frames, maybe from like the 15-minute to the 30-minute, maybe even the lower time frames as well. I like it when they are kind of backing up my idea as well. I'll basically be looking for money flow to be curving up. Ideally, we see divergences on the lows where, momentum puts in a higher low as price puts in a lower low. And if we see significant enough confirmations in that area, then there's a chance that that is the higher low, and we may continue the overall uptrend from there. Now, this is not the only area I'm going to be looking for longs. Right now, I'm currently looking at trading this local range that we're in because, hey, maybe we don't retest this area. Maybe we just range here for a little bit and then continue up. That's very possible. We definitely don't have to come back to this area. So I am looking at trading the local range. I'm also trading both sides of it, just trading the context of the range. So if I take a short up here, I'm going to lock it in by the time we rotate. If I take a long down here, I'm going to lock it in by the time we rotate by taking profits and setting my stop loss to entry. You could also maybe look at some sooner areas of resistance like the value area high and the 0.5 confluence. I don't love it because there is an inefficiency and that's kind of in the middle of it. But, it could act as support. I could definitely see a scenario where maybe that ends up being the higher low. So if there's good enough confirmations there, then maybe. And, if I were to trade this area, I probably would personally want to see a bit of a range form. And then I would trade the context of the range. And then if it ends up breaking up from there, great. If not, if it just kind of plays out like that, then okay, cool. I get stopped out of entry and I made a profit anyway, hopefully. And if we lose this key box of support, I think there is one more Hail Mary support level that could hold up price, which would be the value area low in the 786, and also potentially grabbing liquidity from this low. I don't love that though. I would much rather see this box hold. And, if we lose that area, is it possible that we put in a higher low, in between this low and the value area low? Sure, it's possible. Anything's possible, but I would not be betting on that unless I saw very clear confirmations in this area. And even if I did, I would want to see low time frame confirmations that could give me a low time frame scalp. But basically, I think if we lose this low, the chances of us just kind of reversing market structure and breaking back into this range greatly increase. By how much, I can't really say, but yeah, I think it would not be a good look if we lost this support level. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at in terms of my plans going forward. And really quickly, I want to go over this last trade that I took. Actually, not my last trade because I did take a long after this, which was a loss. I took less than a 1% loss on my long, which I think was this wick right here, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't remember. I deleted the position. But regardless of that, I still had 4 winners and 1 loser over the last week and a half or however long it's been. So it's been a good at least 2 weeks of trading. And yeah, I did take a short over here, and this was a profitable short, but it was unfortunately stopped out prior to the larger dump, and that's a little unfortunate. But I want to kind of highlight this because I think this is a good representation of one of the psychological tricks that I use to benefit my trading. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, I mean, I took a short here. I locked in profits. I got stopped out of my entry, and then price went on to, dump after I got stopped out of my short. So basically, even though it was a winning trade, I could have profited a lot more. And I am not upset about getting stopped out of that trade. And why am I not upset? Well, because I no longer get upset about missing out on moves. That is just something that I've moved away from. I used to get very upset about missing moves. If price pumped without me, I'd be upset. If price dumped without me, I'd be upset. So pretty much any time I'd watch price action, I'd just be angry because I wasn't in a trade. And that is a poor mindset to be in. And that's something that I realized a long time ago. And that's something that I've been working on since I realized that. And basically, the point to this is that, yeah, I did get stopped out of a trade. And then, pretty soon after, it went on to dump a whole bunch. And yeah, I only locked in, about 1%, maybe a little bit more than a 1%. So I locked in a little bit more than what I risked on the trade. But it could have been a lot more. This could have been a, let's see, maybe 12 to 1 risk reward. Maybe I could have locked in 5%, taking multiple take profits. And yeah, I'm not upset about it because number one, it was a winner. Can't get upset about a winner. Number two, I can find trades that can net me 5% pretty much whenever I want to sit down, do the work, and wait for those kind of trades. Those kind of trades pop up every day. Even if it's not with a massive move like this, it could be in a little range, and you can just wait for the right setup and get those kind of returns. So I am not upset about missing out on that dump. In fact, I'm happy that I took a short and made a little bit of profit from it because that covered my, kind of stupid mistake of taking a long down here. Even though I had a proper setup, it's not like I took a stupid trade, really. It's just a trade that didn't play out. And I don't even quite remember if it was right here, but I think it was. It doesn't really matter, though. So yeah, my point of this is because I know that I can find trade setups no matter what the condition. I don't have to be in a trade for these massive dumps to profit because I know that I can find trade setups whenever. I do not get upset when price moves without me. I wasn't in a long for this pump, and I really couldn't care less. I mean, sure, it would have been nice to be in a long, but I really don't care. I'll look for the next trade. All right, so now I will quickly run through Market Cipher. So I don't know if we had an update on this weekly time frame. No, it doesn't look like we did. I think that's what it looked like last time. So yeah, nothing there. We'll go down to the daily, and the daily time frame is definitely getting closer to printing a top, or at least it looks like that. But one thing I want to point out, if you look down at this yellow oscillator, which we call the VWAP, I know it's a little confusing because the VWAP is also this dynamic moving average, is this gray line. So they're both called VWAP. This is the Market Cipher VWAP. This is just normal VWAP. It's a little confusing, but when I'm pointing out Market Cipher B and I say the VWAP, I'm talking about the yellow oscillator. And on the daily time frame, this yellow oscillator is showing a bit of weakness. It has a bit of an outward curve to it. And that is a sign that it is hesitant to cross over the zero line and could potentially continue this outward curve back to the upside, potentially resulting in continuation of this momentum wave movement to the upside. And that doesn't necessarily mean that this can't just take a turn to the downside. We print a red dot and then things start turning down. But it is a sign that it is less likely. You have seen times where you get that outward curve, but then VWAP just crosses over, and yeah, that ends up marking a significant bottom. In this case, that was this low. But typically, for a stronger sign of strength for a top or bottom of a momentum wave printing, you want to see that inward curve, like we see here, like we see here. And, you can see times where a bit of an outward curve eventually turns into an inward curve. So could that happen here? Yeah, that is possible as well. But I'm simply pointing out that, right now it is looking a little bit less likely that this momentum wave will print a red dot because of the way the VWAP looks. So I already kind of went over the 4-hour, but, to sum it up again, we see the momentum div still. Looks like we're pretty close to taking out this local lower high, but, still, even if we do that, we will probably still see momentum divs from this wave to the current wave if it ends up continuing up. And if it ends up topping out here, again, I think there is a higher likelihood that it could just result in a higher low for price action because the money flow is continuing to put in higher highs. And right now it is getting a pretty aggressive move to the upside. So that's kind of what I'm getting from the 4-hour, but we can look at some of the lower time frames to see how likely that is. So the 3-hour looks pretty much exactly the same as the 4-hour, not too much change there, so we'll skip that and go to the 2-hour. So here we are seeing money flow come out a little bit. Now this is, one thing kind of going against the 4-hour continuing to the upside, but it, is not a surefire thing. We have to look at other time frames and, see maybe if they can tell us something different. Maybe some of the lower time frames already kind of bottomed out with money flow and now we're starting to come back up. So let's go down to the 1-hour. And here I am maybe starting to get that kind of vibe from this. So what we saw is we basically saw a downtrend in money flow, and that downtrend resulted in price getting a little move into the red. If I really zoom in on this, you can see there's a little bit of purple money flow there. So it just dipped into the red and now has come back up. It has basically broken that trend of downwards money flow and is now continuing to put in higher highs. So could this potentially play into the idea of maybe the 4-hour coming down a little bit, just printing a higher low in price action and, then seeing things continue to the upside? It could. You could also make the argument that, hey, we still see downward direction here. Maybe you just extend the trend line over to here and maybe it still just overall continues down. You could make that argument as well. But I am starting to see, at least something that could potentially back up the idea of a higher low here, or I should say an incoming higher low. Now the 30-minute, similar thing, money flow came out, we kind of bobbed up and down, and, it's looking a little funky, but what we can see now is price is putting in higher highs, at least locally. So it's kind of a weird trend, but it is still putting in higher highs, it's still trending up. And same thing on the 15-minute, it is in a local uptrend. Could we maybe see this money flow come out again, maybe put in, a little purple wave before continuing up? Yeah, I think that's possible. But we won't know until we, get to the point where we could potentially be putting in a higher low, until price gets down to this area, or maybe this area, or maybe even this area down here. Till we get to there, and then we see what price action or what market cipher is looking at in that moment, then we really won't know. But looking at it right now, we can see the potential in market cipher B for, the bullish scenario to play out. But you could also say that we see the potential for the bearish scenario to play out as well. So, this is why I'm kind of considering both scenarios and just kind of playing price action as it comes. All right, well, that's all I wanted to go over today. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. All that helps to support my channel, and I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in the next video.